Locho sampo pa gyu trashi pa tu che tempe trinle yarngo da pelge drolor zampe ze parachi palden lame shabla solvade Omo a guru vajra dara suma timo nisha sane kar uta varda nishrib Manya sarva siddhi hum Om Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Utta Vardanya Manya sarva siddhi hum Om Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Utta Vardanya Shriban Varasa Manya Sarva Siddhi Pakyuke Kudandagi Lu Pakyuke Sundandagi Nga Pakyuke Tugdandagi Tenyerme Chikto Jingil Makyuke Kudandagi Lu Tenyerme Chikto Jingil Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Svoha Sangye Chedan Soge Chanam La Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Ching Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchre Sangye Druparish Sangye Chedan Soge Chanam La Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchre Sangye Druparasho Sangye Chedan Sogi Chanam La Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Give Sonam Gi Drola Pinchre Sangye Druparasho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge and enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we make these prayers in the beginning because it is important for us not only to receive the blessings and remember the gratitude that these teachings that we receive is something that has been transmitted for centuries and centuries from master to disciple, generation after generation up to us. And then at the same time also, it is important for us to request these blessings in order for us to be able not only to understand, but also to put it into practice in our daily life and to realize it. Okay? So as we request the blessings, we will do these prayers. Tuje shu gyältsän tarachinte drevche mun pa san shin chokun kem Nige si controla sa zepa Kyo ba la me tu be wan poradu Che tu dro la champal har zepe Tu son kun tu cham kun she trapa Gyawa gyatsa mi pangom pola Nine kupe yigi chagyatom Devara shepa nige lon tenchin Savdan gyache tu belu sampo Satse shin ta che shin rab trapa Zamling gendru choni la chatse Kare rawe korwe yul chondir de gyo gondre dab tongye pe tsül sartu she la gyalwe ni madang tsumpara nga we cham kun la maradum kange tin le we sir tong tsam ki lam santa we lo mi se ze pa je tsun la ma ni mor je be dani pe me sion drur ta tu shon. By accomplishing the two accumulations through the power of compassion, the obscurity of darkness is cleared and all phenomena are known. Whatever is seen by you, you make it clear to my greatest. Munindra, Lord of the sages, unsurpassable refuge, to you I pay homage. Unique love for my greatest, which is embodied as a deity, renowned through the three times as the Lord of love. To the invincible protector, regent of the victorious, with respect from my heart I prostrate with my mind. You have been prophesied by the Sugata, the one gone to bliss himself, the profound and vast pure traditions of the capable one. By making them clear, you are renowned as the great chariot way openers. To the 6 ornaments and the 2 excellent ones of this world I prostrate. In this land surrounded by a range of snow mountains, a garden blossoming with thousands of petals of sutras, tantras, and commentaries is refreshed, making you like the son of the victorious. To the praiseworthy Guru, gentle protector Lama Tsongkhapa, I pay homage. By seeing just a ray of light of your spiritual actions, you make the mind's eye for seeing the pure path clear. Venerable Guru, light that shines like the sun, please remain always at the center of the lotus at my heart. Page 11, pagina 11. Korde könye malu pa semle chungwa yinu she tübe shiraba le she pe ludru namche chenamgi semgi sande she para chen. The defects of samsara and the qualities of nirvana, without exception, derive from the mind, as said in Buddha's teachings. Those who have intelligence and discernment must give importance to knowing the secrets of the mind. So, when it says here, Lodro namcho chenam gisem gisang de shebrche, those who have intelligence and discernment must give importance to knowing the secrets of the mind. Why do we need to learn the secrets of the mind? First of all, what are secrets? No? Secrets are things that exist, but not everyone can see. They are there. And the most important secrets are not things that are hidden, are things that are there for everyone to see, but only those that have the ability can see. It's there. But only those that have the knowledge, that have the ability, can actually see it. The secrets of the mind is understanding better how our mind functions, to see better what is it, how our mind is working. And why do we need to do that? Because at this moment, out of our own ignorance, we live and we experience our life as if our mind was a simple result of the world surrounding us. So if we are happy, or if we are sad, if we are whatever state of mind that we are in, normally, why am I in this state of mind? because this have happened, because that have happened, because of this reason, because of that reason. So we always have an external reason to justify and to explain the inner state of mind in which we are. So what does this make to us? It makes us to try to change the world around us. Because what we really want is to be in peace. What we really want is to be satisfied, is to feel well inside. Truly, we don't care about what is happening around us. Truly, what we really want is to be well within us. But because we do not see our own freedom of the power of our own mind, we end up projecting that the causes of our well-being or sadness or suffering, it's coming from the external conditions. So in order for us to be happy or not to suffer, what do we want to do? We want to create a perfect world. But the reason why we want to create a perfect world is because inside we want to feel well and to be in peace. And we do not understand the power of our own mind. So what happens is we want to create a world where everything is just as I want, where everything is perfect. Why? Because I want to be in peace. But if we stop to analyze, we will see that actually the reality in which we live externally, it is a direct result of our mind. There is not one conflict that we have ever experienced which was not born in our own human mind. There is not one conflict that is not coming from our attachment, from our ignorance, from our selfishness, or from our fears, and so on. If we look in this world, from all the wars that have ever happened, once I read one study from the United Nations in which it was saying that in the past 5,000 years, all the wars that happened, they made a study about the reasons why every war happened, and there was not one war which did not happen because of an economical reason. Even when they call religious wars and this and that, it's always going back to some economical reason, really. But if I'm much more certain, actually, if we look, there is not one war that have ever happened which did not start actually in the human's mind. There is not one war that didn't happen that was created because of selfishness, because of ignorance, because of hatred, because of aggression, and so on. So all the conflicts that exist, all the problems were started in the mind. On the other side, if we look to our human society, all the great things that have happened and that were created, we can see from the great constructions, the great invention, from the great poetry or religion or everything else. Tell me one thing which was not created by the mind, first of all. No. Even if we build the pyramids, whatever, where did they start? In the mind. There is nothing that is not coming from the mind. And even in our own life, everything that we experience is a result of the actions, of the interaction that we have gone through. And every action that we do is coming from our mind. Plus the way how we experience it in the present moment, which is also coming from our mind. So what happens is that, sure, our mind is influenced by the conditions in which we are, by the whole circumstances and situations. We are influenced by it, but we are the ones creating the whole reality. Not in the sense that everything is a dream and we just make whatever we want. No, in the sense that every action that we do is coming originally from the mind. Every choice that we make, and it's out of this interdependence that everything happens. And in the present moment, the way how we relate to reality, the name that we attribute to things, the value that we give to things, this makes a complete difference of how the reality is perceived and experienced. And this is coming from our mind also. So the most powerful resource that we have is our mind. Even if we look from the perspective of our suffering, we have much more mental suffering than physical suffering. And what do we need to do where do we need to find a solution to eliminate the mental suffering? Maybe we go to the shopping center, buy new shoes or buy something whatever. Or maybe we have a glass of whiskey or whatever, pleasure. It doesn't work. Forgetting about the problem will not eliminate it. Where is the solution for the suffering of the mind? In the mind, nowhere else. If we look in our history, we can see people that were born with great, great opportunities. A lot of money, power, influence, intelligence sometimes and so on. But they couldn't do much very often. Actually, most of them cannot do much. If we really look clearly, most of the people that are born with great opportunities are not really doing much of these opportunities, even for one's own happiness. Then we have people that were born without great opportunities, but because they had a very, very special mind, they could do great things. Maybe they had a mind of a very strong faith and love, like Mother Teresa. Or they were extremely intelligent, or they had a special vision of how to do things, or whatever, but it's coming from the mind, or the strong determination they had, Even people that were able, like great athletes, it's mainly coming from the mind, from nowhere else. So our mind is the most powerful tool and resource that we have for anything. So we need to empower ourselves by knowing that the most powerful resource that we have is our own mind. As Rinpoche was saying 2-3 days ago, he was saying, we need to have power over the phenomena, and not the phenomena have power over us. Because the way we live now is that the phenomena have power over us. It's like the way how we live now is like we are the boss. Phenomena are supposed to be like the slaves, the one working for us and fully dedicated for us, but we live exactly in the opposite way around, The boss becomes the slave. This is how we are doing now, because the power is truly in our hand, but we don't know about it. So what happened? We give power to all the conditions and the phenomena all the time. And we try to adapt and to change and to do when actually it's within us. So for this reason, we need to know better the mind, because when we start understanding the mind, then we have the ability to direct it better. Okay? And this is something that is very, very powerful, actually. Okay? One thing, when we start seeing this and understanding it better, how powerful is our mind, there is a moment, although, that we don't want to follow it. There is a moment in which we understand that what determines our happiness and suffering is our mind, our own behavior. But there is a moment which we say, no, I still want to believe that is the world around me. Because I don't want to bring all the responsibility upon myself. I want to continue to be a victim of the world. And wait that something will happen and I will be fine, When actually it depends on my own attitude. So we need to go beyond that. And for that, we will go now starting to understand the mind. It's not something we can understand from one day to the other. It takes its time. But slowly we can understand better how the mind functions. And by that we empower ourselves. Okay. So, we go to page 19 first. And we will start now by seeing the 5 omnipresent mental factors, which are the 5 mental factors that are always present, that are the basis for the formation of every thought every cognition, every primary mind. Okay? As we said yesterday, the day before, there is like the primary mind is like the unity, and the mental factors are like the parts that compose this unity. So primary mind is the thought, is the cognition, is the perception, and the mental factors are the parts that compose such thought. Okay? And there are 5 basic ingredients that must always be present. There are 5 basic mental factors that must always be present. And these are called the 5 omnipresent mental factors. So let me just see what I wrote here. It says, these mental factors are called omnipresent because they exist around every and all forms of primary minds, all of the cognitions, etc. No form of primary mind can exist without having feeling, discernment, intention, attention, and contact around it. So, every primary mind is formed basically by these 5 mental factors, which is Tsorwa Dushe Sempa Yiche Rekpa, sensation of feeling, discernment, intention, attention, and contact. Okay? As Yongzing Yeshe Gyältsän writes, without the 5 omnipresent mental factors, the mind cannot fully experience its object. Without feeling, there is no experiencing the object. Without discernment, there is no establishing the specific characteristics of the object. Without intention, there is no directing towards the object. Without attention, there is no stabilizing the object. Without contact, there is no basis for the mind to experience the object. Now, let's see the 5 one by one for us to start understanding it. This is the order that normally it's given to the 5 omnipresent mental factors. And as we saw yesterday, there are also the 5 concomitant aspects, which means every primary mind and the mental factors that compose it, they have, for example, the same time. They are simultaneous. Okay? But in order to understand more easily the 5 omnipresent mental factors, I would like to explain them changing the order. And first we will see them as being one consequent of the other. Then after we will understand that they are all simultaneous. But to understand them more easily, we see one as consequent of the other. Okay? So we start on page 23 with contact. Okay, even though this is the last one, I prefer to explain starting from this one. Rekpa kanshena ngomba kundule. Rekpa kanshena sumdune wangpo gyurwa yonsu chöbate tsorwe tenchebe lechenom. What is contact? As this is from Asanga's work. What is contact? By gathering the 3, the object, sense power, and the sense consciousness, the mental factor of contact activates the sense power and causes the object to be experienced as something pleasurable, unpleasurable, or neutral. It has the function of being the basis for feeling. There are 6 types of contact based on each of the 6 senses. So what is contact? Contact is the union of 3 things, which is sense object. We have 6 main objects, which is form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and mental images. Okay? Basically, the phenomena are divided into 6 objects based on the 6 senses that we have. I believe if for other forms of life, maybe there is some animal that have a different sense also that we don't have. Why not? Okay? But for us, we have mainly the 6 senses, so we divide the phenomena divided into the 6 objects of perception. So, we have 3 things that get united. We have the sense object, for example, sound, which is the actual vibration in the air. Okay? Then we have the next one is the sense power. For the sense power is the actual physical sense. So we have the ear sense power, the nose sense power, the eye sense power, the tongue sense power, and we have the body sense power and the mind sense power, which is basically the mind sense power is more like the brain itself. And for example, a person that has some specific sickness where the brain is damaged by whatever way, the ability of cognition and so on changes. Okay? So this is basically the mind sense power. Okay? So then we have the third part, which is the sense consciousness. The sense consciousness is the part of the mind which only perceives the senses. There is no judgment, there is no discernment. It only takes into consideration that information is arriving. It's a part of our mind that simply receives the information. Okay? So, for example, when we do maybe if we need to do a surgery and there is done one anesthesia, what happens is that if we do a local anesthesia, the sense object is there because the cutting is happening. The sense power of the skin and the flesh is also there. The nerves and everything is there. But the connection between the sense power and the sense consciousness is cut. It's blocked. So we cannot feel what is happening. We don't have the sensation. Why? Because there is no sense consciousness connected. There are some sicknesses, for example, where people lose the ability to see or to listen, not because that there is no problem in the ear, no problem in the eye, but the connection with the brain is damaged. So based on that, what happened? The connection with the consciousness of the sense is blocked or damaged. And because of that, there is no perception. So contact is the union of these three things. So let's take, for instance, when we make a sound, okay? As we listen to the sound, what is the object? Sense object is the vibration, once I hit the bell, on the air, coming to us. The sense power is our own ear, and the sense consciousness, the mind that perceives the sound. Okay? Now, if we just look like this, looks as something very simple, but actually only through contact it tells us a lot of things. For example, if we take the sound, the object, the sound that each one of us is listening, the actual sense object, okay? Is it the same or is it different for each one of us? How many bells am I playing here? One bell. But the sound, the vibration in the air that arrives to my ear that I am very near, or that arrives to each one of you that are in different positions, is it exactly the same sound or is it slightly different? It's slightly different. It's similar, but it's different. And whatever is similar by definition is different. Okay? So what happened is that, first part, the object is different. As I play the bell. Our sense power, my ear and the ear of each one of you, and vice versa, are they the same or they are slightly different? We're all human beings, because of that they are similar, but they are not the same, right? You know, some people they have a more sensible ear, some people have a less sensible ear, some people can sensitive ears, people have a less sensitive ear, some people can listen better to some frequencies, other frequencies not, and so on. Okay? So, we have a different sense power. And the sense consciousness of each one of us, is it the same or is it different? Different once again. So basically what we can see just by observing contact, that the experience of reality is different for each one of us. When we see something, when we look to a person or we look to an object, the light that arrives to our eyes is not exactly the same. Because when we see what happens, there is an object, the light hits on that object and reflects to our eyes. That's the eye sense object. Okay? Then our eye sense power is different. And the eye sense consciousness is also different. So what I see and what you see is not exactly the same. Because the object is not exactly the same, the sense power is not the same, and the sense consciousness is also not the same. And the same thing is for all our senses. So what this is showing to us, just by seeing the first of the 51 mental factors that we are looking at, it's showing us the relativity of reality. How everything, it's relative, how everything depends on the observer. Because external reality does exist, because we say that the object exists, so the sound does exist. But we are not able at all to understand and to perceive sound without the sense power and without the sense consciousness. Okay? But normally what do? We are not aware of this process. So we only believe that it's what? The actual object. We don't give any importance to the sense power and to the sense consciousness. No? But it's like sometimes, for example, I have some sort of fever, and when I have this type of fever, I feel like in my skin as if there were many very small cuts. So if someone touches, it's not nice. Okay? So when, for example, if I have this sensation and a person come and touch one person and then touch me, it would not be pleasurable to me. But why? Because my sense power has changed. Because of a sickness. Okay? Similar to that, some people become hypersensitive with the sound or with the light or with whatever. This is due to the sense power. So, what this is showing to us? As the text says here, it has the function of being the basis for feeling. Feeling is three types of feeling. The feeling of pleasure, the feeling of suffering, and the neutral feeling. Okay? Normally we can translate as feeling or sensation, but the best word I think is feeling. This is one thing that happens. When we have, then after we are going to see, the next one we will see is feeling. But when we have a pleasurable feeling, what is our reaction? Attraction, which is the intention that will come after. We have attraction. When we have a negative feeling, a bad feeling, what do we have? Aversion. Normally, we connect the reason of pleasure or the reason of suffering to what? To the sense power? To the consciousness? Or to the object? To the object. So for us, the object exists as the only main cause of our sensation. Or our feeling of pleasure or suffering. When actually, it does not depend only on the object. If someone comes and makes me some nice caress, touches me in a nice way, gentle way, with something very soft, but which for another person would be pleasurable, but because I have a very sensitive moment, because I have a fever, for me it's creating suffering. In this moment, what is giving the most influence? The sense power. When we listen to something, if that sound is loud or if it's not loud, and it's like this, we can go on. If there is too much light, too less light, and so on, it depends mostly on our senses. And we are not even entering into one other mental factor, that is discernment, which is also very powerful. But before entering into discernment, which is the value that we attribute to things, by the simple fact of our sense power and the consciousness that perceives it has a big, big, big influence in everything that we perceive and experience. So reality is not only in the object. The way how we experience reality, it is in the union of the three parts together. We have object, sense power, and consciousness. The three things together, it makes a big, big difference in this way. So, this is showing to us one way that also we are not only, how to say, a passive result of the world. We are active creators of reality. based on our senses, based on our consciousness, and later we will see based on our discernment, intention, and so on. So the first of the 51 mental factors that we are seeing, contact, is showing us how all phenomena are relative. It's showing us that even though we may listen to a similar sound, because we are all human beings, and we are in the same space, and I'm playing the bell only once, still what I listen and what you listen is not the same. Not because I am special, but because I am normal. All of us will listen to something different. Why we listen to something different? Because the object is different, because the sense power is different, because the sense consciousness is different. And there is no other way around. Okay? So this is the first of all, which is contact. And it is important for us to remember this because it's also showing to us that every experience that we have, it comes through our senses. So it's important to take care of the senses also, because everything that we arrive through our senses. Sometimes one of the senses is hypersensitive or something happen and then we cannot. For example, even the touch, One person have the skin of a hand more sensitive and another person have it more rough, is not able to feel so much the touch. And like this we can go on and on. Taste, smell. I don't have a good ability of smell. I think because I lived in India for so many years with such strong smells for so many years, Then after some times, the ability of smell just went away. I am not so capable of feeling so subtle smells. It need to be quite strong for me to feel it. So, on the other side, I'm very sensitive with the sound. Okay? And like this, we can have each one is different. So this is because our sense powers are different. And we perceive reality through our senses. Okay? So this is showing how different each one of us, the experience of reality for each one of us is different. Reality is different for each one of us, starting from contact. Okay? Well, so to change this reality is not only changing the object, we need to change also the sense power, the consciousness. By changing each one of, whatever one of the three, we change the perception of reality. We change reality. Okay? The reason why the object is different is because when I play the bell, the vibration in the air of the sound that arrives in my ear that I am near, or in your ear that you are more far, is a different one. When I look to the same image on Kyabche Trijang Rinpoche image on the wall, the painting, what arrives to my eyesight is the reflection of the light. We are in a different position. It's not precisely the same. The only way to have exactly the same object is being the same person. It can be very similar, but it still is not precisely the same. No? And very often it's very different and we think it's the same. Okay? So, this is one point. No, it is they are connected. If there is no connection between the sense power and the sense consciousness, sure, it's not working. They are all connected, no? So this is sure. It's not a fourth part. If we like, we can say it is like a fourth connection. If it's not there, if the connection is not there, it's like if the consciousness is missing. Okay, so it's always the tree. Okay. What happens is that through contact is the first part through which we experience reality. Not only we experience, but we create. Okay? It is delicate to make some statements at this point because we need to go into more details about when we talk about reality. Because reality does not exist independently of the observer. Okay? And contact is showing this to us also. Okay? Because when I listen to something and it looks very loud, and when you listen to something and it looks very soft, there is no anything like loud or soft by itself. It depends on the observer at the same time. Okay? So contact is actually the way through which we create and experience reality. Okay? It's the first step. There are other parts also, but it's the first part. Okay? Well, let's go to the next one then. So, next part. We go to page number 19. After contact, the function of contact is being the basis for feeling. Okay? And then feeling is, let's go through the text first. Okay. Sorwe ngowo ni ngomba kundole, sorwe tsenyi chishena, nyongwe tsenyi te, nyongwe ngowo kange gewa dami gewe, le namge, drebo nambar mimbe soso nyongwa o shesumba taros. So it says, from the text of Asanga, which is called the Compendium of Knowledge, the Abhidharma Samachaya or Ngompa Kuntu. Then this is like all the citations are coming from the same text of Asanga. And it says, which is this little booklet I have here. This is from where I got all these citations, okay? And it says, what are the defining characteristics of feeling? It has the defining characteristics of experiencing. Its nature is to experience the fully ripened results of all virtuous and non-virtuous deeds. It is then, this is my own explanation, it says, it is the mental factor that experiences the object of perception through its own power, or rather, it doesn't depend on the help of other mental factors to experience its own object. By experiencing, we mean the feeling that feeling experiences contact and experiences the results of causes created in the past. The function of feeling is to give rise to attraction, aversion, or equanimity, or indifference. So, feeling is the aspect of our mind through which we experience reality. Feeling, there are three types of feeling. Basically, we have pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feelings. And the feeling is that one through which we experience everything. It's the basis for our judgment, for example. If something is good or bad, if that moment was a good moment or a bad moment, what is the basis of our judgment? Our feeling. Was it pleasurable? Was it unpleasant? How did I feel? That's the basis that we have for judging and experiencing everything. So we experience reality through feeling. So feeling is the mental factor that allows us to experience reality. Okay? And we experience reality, putting reality in every experience that we have, we put it through feeling in three categories. Pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Okay? So here, how does it work, basically? We listen to a sound, for example. In the moment that we listen to the sound, there is contact, because we have the object, the sense power, the consciousness, and right away after contact, what comes? Feeling. Sensation or feeling. The feeling comes right away, and the feeling can be or pleasurable or unpleasurable, suffering or neutral. When we have a pleasurable feeling, what is the reaction that we have? Attraction. When we have an unpleasant feeling, aversion. When we have a neutral feeling, indifference. Okay? So, it is very interesting to see that this is the basis through which we experience reality and we act. Okay? And it's very nice to see how simple we are. No? Because basically, if we truly observe, it is just, okay, we have the six senses, we enter in contact with them, we had a feeling. If the feeling was pleasurable, you can be sure what will be the reaction? Attraction. If the feeling was suffering, was unpleasurable, what will be the reaction? Aversion. If the feeling was neutral? Indifference. I haven't met anyone in my life that would have an attraction towards unpleasant feelings. Or someone that has aversion towards pleasant feelings. I have never met anyone like this. Okay? So, this is how it works. The main question is, okay, once I have attraction, how would I follow up? What will I do in order to maintain such pleasant feeling and so on? Then this is very different from one person to the other, but the basic instinct of attraction and aversion based on the feeling of pleasure and suffering, it's very basic for all of us. Okay? So, as it says here, another point which is important also, as it says in the definition, it says, its nature is to experience the fully ripened results of all virtuous and non-virtuous deeds. This means that it's through feeling that we experience the results of karma, okay, of the actions that we have done in the past. Basically, we do an action. At one point, we're not entering into details about karma now, but we do an action. After some time, because in the I was just remembering now, in the 5 omnipresent mental factors, we have all the bases of karma. We have actual karma and the result of karma. They are all mental factors, actually. Okay? Because intention, the mental factor intention is the actual karma, while the mental factors in feeling is the experiencing the ripening of the karma. Okay? So, we can also see how understanding the mental factor is important even to understand the law of karma. Anyhow, what happens is that we make an action. Once we do an action, we will get at a certain point a result. How does the result manifest to us? Through feeling. If we have a good feeling, it means this is the ripening of a virtuous action that we did, a positive action that we did. If we have a bad feeling, a negative feeling, a suffering, this is the result of a negative action that we have done. Sometimes we can see there are people, for example, that even though they have all the external good conditions, the objects of senses are positive, good objects of senses, there is really all the conditions are wonderful. Sometimes because there is no merit, which is, the word for merit, I don't know in English, punya in Sanskrit, sok, sonam in Tibetan, there is no precise translation, which is because there is no positive karma, there is no virtuous causes, there is no merits. What happens is that even though the conditions are there, the experience is that of suffering. There is even a saying that we use in Tibetan, when someone gets something very good, but the person doesn't have the merits to sustain something so good, then something will happen and the person will enter into suffering, That's also, for example, something maybe a little bit difficult to understand, but it is said, for example, that when in a family, when a family have a son or a daughter, that is a very special being, like a realized being, like a tulku or a realized being is born in a family, very often the family after get big interferences because something so good happened to them that they don't have enough merits to sustain it. Okay? Like it is said, for example, that the mother of Rinpoche, when Rinpoche was born in the sunrise of the 4th day of the 6th month, okay, which is the day that Buddha turned the Dharma wheel. So he was born at the sunrise at the time. And it is said that in the moment when he was born, the light that came in during sunrise was so strong that because of that light, later his mother got blind. Okay? And not many years later, his mother passed away also. But this is to say that is one example. There are many, many other examples that we can go through. And it says that when something really very good happens, very often people don't have the merits to sustain it. So it's like when we have something wonderful, but we will start fighting about, we will start suffering about it, we're not able to sustain that something so good that we have. Okay? So, this is when we say that the merits are missing. So normally, when there is no merits, there is no sensation of pleasure, even though everything is wonderful. That's why we say it's so important to generate merits. On the other side, when a person has a lot of merits, even in the worst conditions, the person feels good. Connects to something here or there, and the person have a good feeling. You know, it's like one of my teachers, when I was asking what went the best period on your life in India after you left Tibet, and he said were the first 10 years, where they had nothing to eat really well, no place to sleep, and so on. Very, very bad conditions materially. But he was very happy because they dedicated their life mainly for the Dharma and so on. But the inner feeling was of pleasure, which means there was a lot of merit being created, a lot of positive energy being created. So, the ultimate cause of a pleasant feeling is positive actions. The ultimate cause of negative suffering feeling is non-virtuous, violent actions. Okay? This is to understand this aspect of feeling also. Now, the definition of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. When I first read this, I really liked it very much. Pleasant feelings, they are all the sensations or all the feelings that we have that we don't want to end, and likewise we want them to return as soon as possible. So what is an unpleasant feeling is all the feelings that we have, we don't want it to end, and we want it to come back as soon as possible. What is an unpleasant feeling? They are all of the sensations or feelings that we have that we want to end as soon as possible, and we don't want them to return. So, and it's also the result of unwholesome actions. And the neutral feelings are all the feelings we have, and we don't care if it continues or not, if it comes back or not. Okay? Next part. We have basically two types of feeling. Physical or bodily feelings and mental feeling. Okay? So, we can say that we have a total of 18 types of feelings, which may look a lot, but it's very easy to name them. Because we have the feeling, we have how many types of contact? 6 types of contact. Because there are 6 objects, 6 senses, 6 consciousness. Then, out of that we have 6 contact. From contact come feeling. Okay? So we have the eye contact, so we have an eye feeling coming from the contact with the eyesight, feeling coming from the contact of the ear, feeling coming from the contact of the taste, and so on. Okay? So here is a feeling that comes through visual contact, feeling that comes through auditory contact, feeling that comes through olfactory contact, feeling that comes through gustatory contact, feeling that comes through tactile contact, and the feeling that comes through mental contact. Okay? Then, for each one of these 6, we have pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, making it a total of 18. What is the importance of seeing this difference? Is that basically, normally when we think about our feeling, we think like the feeling as a whole thing, something solid. But actually, if we really look through it, feeling, we have 18 types of feelings. And at the same moment, we can have 6 at the same moment. I can have a feeling which is based on what I am listening. I can have a feeling from what I am seeing. I can have a feeling from what I am touching. I can have a feeling from what I am tasting, from what I am smelling, from what I am thinking. Okay? And what is the point here? What is the function of feeling? It generates the basis for attraction, aversion, and indifference. So depending on what I see as the cause of my pleasant or unpleasant feeling, I will direct my attraction or aversion to something different. Okay? So it's one interesting thing that we need to do is to observe our own feelings and understand, okay, I'm feeling happy. What from the 6 senses, where is it coming from? Is it a pleasant feeling that is coming maybe because I was feeling too hot and I went to a cool place? So it's coming from the touch? Or was it basically because I was thirsty and I drink some water and this brings me the sensation of pleasure? So it's based on taste. Or was it because I listened to a beautiful sound? Or is it because a memory of something or a projection of something, an expectation or something I create with my mind? Okay. Very often we will see that many of these feelings that we have of pleasant or unpleasant feelings, they come most often from the discernment, the value that we attribute, the projections that we make with our mind, much more than from our senses very often. The senses are always present, but I believe that the feeling that comes from the mind is much stronger than those that come directly from our senses, actually. Okay. So, as it says here, feelings of pleasure bring about the desire not to be separated from the object. Feelings of suffering bring about the desire to be separated from the object. Neutral feelings lead to having neither aversion or attraction towards the object. So one important thing is for us to observe our own feeling and understand where is it coming from? From which one of the senses is this coming? What contact is bringing this feeling of pleasure or feeling of suffering? And based on this, we can choose better where to direct our attraction, where to direct our aversion. What do I need? What I want for me, what I don't want for me. Okay? And it's very nice because we will see that very often we project the cause of our suffering into something that has nothing to do with it. Okay? We are sad because of something. We have the bad memory because of something. We have the trauma because of something. Then we see something else, and then the suffering is not coming from what I see. The suffering is coming from the mental contact with the memory and so on. Okay? Maybe I listen to something. The sound itself can be pleasurable. But because this connects me to a memory of something that I didn't like, of something that was not good, I have a bad feeling. I have a sensation I have a feeling of suffering. But what is the contact that brought the feeling of suffering? The sound or the memory? The memory, which was activated through the sound. But the direct contact was coming from the memory. So that is a mental feeling. Okay? And we have a lot of mental feeling very often. So if I have a mental feeling, where is the object that I need to have attraction or aversion? The mental object, not the external object, which was just a trigger for that mental object. Because if I only try to avoid the sounds that triggers the memory, at some point something else will trigger the same memory and will trigger. So I need to deal with the mental object in this case instead of only dealing with the external object. So what happened here is that once we start understanding this, it's so wonderful because it helps us to have more awareness of where to direct our energy. It makes a big difference, actually. Okay? So, and, together with that, we can see another aspect, which is feeling is something that determines a lot of our life. If we look, many of our actions are based on the attraction towards feeling. It's because we want pleasurable feeling and we don't want the suffering. So, for example, most of the people, if I have attachment towards water, truly I don't care about the water. What I care about? The pleasure, the good feeling that I have when I drink the water. Okay? So, this doesn't mean that I hate the water. It simply means that what we really want is the sensation. This is why also Buddha explained, when explaining the identity of ourselves, the self is made of 5 aggregates, and one of them is feeling, which is exactly the same feeling that we are seeing here. There's also something interesting. When we look at the 5 aggregates, which is the basis of the self, we have the aggregate of form, which is the body, the aggregate of feeling, which is exactly the mental factor feeling, the aggregate of discernment, which is the mental factor discernment. We have the aggregate of compositional factors, which are all the other 49 mental factors. And we have the aggregate of consciousness, which is the primary mind. So once again, to understand the basis of imputation of the self, which are the 5 aggregates, truly we need to go through the 51 mental factors to understand what they mean also. Okay? So, feeling is the basis of most conflicts. If we see most of the conflicts that happen in the world are based off the attachment towards feeling or towards discernment. Once we are in a situation where all of us can have what we want and we can have all good feelings, then we start having attachment towards, this is my idea, I am right, you are wrong. Then we enter into the discernment. But a lot of what we do is based on the attachment towards feeling. Okay? So how do we deal with this? One of the first things is that we cannot stop the feeling of pleasure or the feeling of suffering. What we can do is understand what is the contact through which it is coming. And by understanding better the contact, we can through that actually choose better which is the object that we want to cultivate or the object that we want to abandon. This is very important, because if we constantly try to abandon the wrong object, that same suffering feeling will continue to come back again and again and again. And if we look most of the times, what happens is that the most strong suffering that we have, which is a mental suffering, is coming from mental objects, where the physical objects are just something that triggers that mental object that we need to deal with. Okay? I think it's quite clear, right? Mm-hmm. No, mental object can be a memory, can be a trauma, mental object can be something that we imagine, a mental object can be an idea, can be a concept, can be an expectation, can be a projection, and so on. When you have okay. What is happening here? First of all, here at this point we are checking to understand better how feeling works. And the feeling is coming through a contact. So to understand once we understand what is the contact, then we can say, okay, this is a pleasurable feeling. It's coming from this contact. How can I cultivate it? This is an unpleasurable feeling. It's coming from this contact. How can I abandon it? If it is a mental contact, and it's an unpleasurable feeling, it's something that generates suffering, then we need to understand which is the way how to eliminate that mental object. And then we can go through a whole process of what is the right way of eliminating that mental object, or how to cultivate it if it's something that is pleasurable and good for us. Okay? So with this we conclude this part of feeling. And actually, if we look, just contact and feeling by itself, it's enough to meditate for a whole year almost, And there is a lot just to understand and to... It makes it, if we really go deep into each one of this, it's really a lot to do, and for me it's incredible when I see how much it can change our perception and the way how we experience things. Okay, now let's go to see one more, which is the next very important one, which is discernment. Okay. So now, we just see briefly the next point, which is called discernment, and it says, Dushe gitseni chi shenas, dute shebar chebe tseni te, tsemar zimbada, chawar zimbe ngowo kangi jidar tongada, tobada, cheda chebada nambra, shebe tön namla, tanyo dokba o. What are the defining characteristics of discernment? Discernment is the mental factor that functions to know by the gathering of specific and general aspects of a given object, the way of seeing, listening, differentiating, and cognizing in order to label that object. Discernment is the mind that holds on to the specific characteristics of an object of perception by gathering objects, sense power, and sense consciousness, which means the discernment is the mental factor that by contact, because what are these three things? Object, sense power, and consciousness. These three together is contact. So through contact, perceives by, as it says here, by seeing, listening, differentiating, and cognizing, it sees the general and specific characteristics of an object and attributes a value to it, labels that object. So I listen to the sound, and then I say, oh, that's the sound of a bell, of a singing bowl. Okay? Based on what? Based because in the past I have seen, I have listened, I have got explained that this is called a singing bowl, it has this or that meaning, the sound of the bell represents wisdom and the female energy, etc., blah, 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 whatever. So what happened is that when I listen to that sound, I go there and I attribute that value to it. I have this discernment of it. Okay? Discernment is the mental factor which apprehends the characteristics of the object of perception through its own power, which means discernment does not depend on any other mental factor to apprehend the characteristics of the object. There are 6 types of discernment based on each of the 6 senses. The function of discernment is to specify the characteristics of the object and to designate its name, which means it's through discernment that we know what is what. It's through discernment that we attribute a value to something. And we say, this is a bell, this is a table, this is a glass, this is water, and so on. That's the ability of discernment. Okay? That's a very, very, very important mental factor. And that's why also it's part of the 5 aggregates. And also when we talk about the correct view of reality, when we say that all phenomena depend on the imputation of the name, of the attribution of value, what is this imputation of the name? If we need to find where is the imputation of the name, is in the mental factor discernment. And at every moment, we can have up to 6 discernments. What I listen, what I see, what I smell, what I taste, what I touch, and what I think. Okay? So, we have first, when we listen to a sound, we attribute a value to it. We give a name that sound. We see something, we name what we see. We touch something, we name what we touch. We are constantly naming everything. How does that work? We have experiences from the past. There is the education we receive, the culture in which we grow up, all the experiences and traumas and everything that we have from the past. And in the moment that we see something in the present, we access that experience of the past, or like an inner database. And then we see, what is this? This is a bell. Based on what? Because at some point I could see and listen and so on. Okay? And this will come with memories, will come with emotions, many things will come together with that. When we talk about naming, it's very profound naming. Sometimes together with the name come expectations, come emotions, many things come together with the name. Attraction, aversion, and other things also, okay? So, in the moment that actually we label it, we give an existence to it. Okay? So one very interesting thing for us to observe is that, for example, I listen to the sound. And maybe the first sensation that I get by just listening to the sound, it's a pleasurable one. But then I start actually by analyzing it and attributing other values to that sound. Oh, that sound is, I remember when I lost something, I was listening to that sound or whatever, blah, 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 blah. I don't need to think necessarily about it. consciously, but I make the connection, and based on that, and I attribute this is not something good. And this brings me back a memory of something that I didn't like, and then this makes me suffer again. Okay? So what is the actual object of the suffering at that moment? It's not the sound. It's the memory, it's the object, it's the value that I attributed to it that awakens a certain memory. And this generates the suffering. Okay? Or the joy, or the happiness, depends on what happens. So, when we have discernment, and we always have it, we choose between infinite possibilities one possibility to that object. But our main issue is that we are not aware of having discernment. The way how we relate to things is that if for me this is a glass of water, it's because it is a glass of water. It's not because I see it in that way. Okay? So, in other words, in every moment, there are infinite possibilities in every object. Through discernment, we choose one possibility. And we are not aware of that. So what happens is that the possibility that we choose, we think it is the only reality of the object. Instead of understanding that is one of infinite possibilities that we have chosen. Okay? So, discernment is where lies great part of our freedom. Of choice, of action, of the way how to relate to reality. The first thing that we need to do in relation to discernment is to be aware that we have discernment. Is to be aware that we relate to the world through values that we attribute to it. And we are doing that constantly, and we have no other way of doing. In other words, it is the meaning that we live within a paradigm. And to be aware that we live within a paradigm. And I have my own paradigm. Okay? And it's coming through the result of all the experiences I had and everything which come in the past. Also because there is something very interesting. When we enter in contact to an object, okay, what happens? The value that we will attribute to it, the discernment, can only exist based on all the experiences I had in the past. We are not able to see something based on something we have never seen. It's like when talking to someone, as I explain something to you, I cannot explain something to you without using the knowledge that you already have. I can only explain something to a person by using the concepts and the knowledge that a person already have. Then by putting together different parts of the knowledge that a person already have, we can create a new knowledge. Okay, that's how our mind functions mostly. So, based on this, every time that we experience something, what are the resources that we get to give a value to that? The culture, the experiences, the concepts, the education, everything that we had up to now. That's what we have. But we have the freedom to make a better choice. Okay, yes, it's coming this, but I can see that other way, no? It's like, even for example, the sensation is also connected to it. So I did example, for instance, if someone is making a massage on us, like a therapy, and then there is one point which is very painful. We know that it's good for us, but what is the first sensation that comes? Physical sensation of suffering. Reaction? Aversion. I don't want. But then we attribute the value. Oh, this is good for me because then we will eliminate my pain and this and that. Last time I had this pain like this. After it was better. So, attraction. Please continue. I want more. Okay? So, what does this mean? Depending on the value that we attribute to things, depending on the discernment, this also will create a specific type of sensation that will come after. Because it is the basis for a mental contact also, which will generate by itself a sensation. So, it is within discernment that we have the power of learning many new things, of understanding things, and of experiencing reality in a different way. So this is where lies our main freedom. Okay? So again, the most important thing is to understand that we act through discernment all the time. And our discernment is just one possibility we choose within infinite possibilities. And one possibility is not more important than the other. Then one time a friend of mine asked me, but because this person was seeing something in a specific way which was creating suffering, and I was saying, look, but if you look at this other perspective, no? And then the person said, but what is the real way to see? What is the right way? No? Then I was thinking, I say, the point is not the right way. Both the ways that we are looking are right. The way that you are looking is right, because the unity of the parts is able to fulfill the functions and characteristics of what you are saying. The way I am saying is also right, because the union of the parts can also fulfill the functions and characteristics of what I am saying. The question is, which one is better? Because there are infinite correct views. Which one I want to apply that it's more benefit for myself, that brings more harmony, less conflict, and so on. Okay? But because we are not aware of having a discernment, we always want to know what is the right one. As if there was a reality totally independent of the discernment itself. But this doesn't exist. Okay? So as we can see, by just analyzing discernment, contact, all of this will bring us back to emptiness, actually, as we go through this all the time. Okay? And it is really the five mental factors, omnipresent mental factors, so important, because we have seen contact is the basis for the rest. Sensation is how our karma ripens. So we need to understand karma, we need to understand sensation. Discernment is the basis of our action, and the way how we see reality is the basis of interdependence. The next one, which we will see later, which is intention, is the basis, is the actual karma. Attention is the basis of our actions, Like, it's really fundamental, even in the understanding of Dharma, generally speaking. Okay? But again, contact, feeling, and discernment. Just these three that we have seen this morning is already enough for one life of reflection in many ways, if we really apply them to our life well, okay? So let's try to understand, let's try to observe the contact, let's try to observe the feeling, and observe our discernment. If we start just by observing what is happening inside of us, seeing these ingredients, it's like now I have introduced you to 3 ingredients. Now, as we eat, we can feel the taste of each one of them separately and start to understand what is happening inside of us. That's already a big benefit if we are able to do that. Okay? Jitsun lame kutse rapten chi namkar tinle chochur gepada losan tempe dreme sas taktu ne gyur chi Nimo delle tsendele, nime kuyande. Sumki jingi lob, koncho sumgi ngodrup sol, koncho sumgi trashi shu. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Omahun tönpa me sangye rinpoche, kyoba me tamcho rinpoche, drenpa me gendu rinpoche, kyabne kuncho sumla chopa bu.